work review. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First items are the review and approval of the consent items. We have the January 13, 2020 meeting minutes, the January 23rd, 2020 meeting minutes, account payable manifest of January 21st, 2020 in the sum of $91,547.25, and January 28th, 2020 in the sum of $71,267.78. We have a payroll manifest of January 23rd, 2020 in the sum of $57,844.74, and January 30th, 2020 in the sum of $57,237.46. We have 4 veterans credits. We have 2 approval and 2 denials of abatements. We have the trustees of the trust fund requests in the sum of $11,506.20. Are there any items members would like to remove from consent? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair, to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Lemire,
Second.
second by Mr. Schaefer. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carries 4-0-0. Are there any other items of business members would like to add this evening? Okay, hearing none. Public input will occur no earlier than 6:45 p.m. The first item of business is the town moderator meeting. Mr. Brown.
Okay, I've asked our town moderator to be here this evening. Typically, each year before deliberative session, we'll meet with the moderator and just go over the general plans so that everyone is communicated, and we've worked out any last minute details for this coming Saturday's meeting, deliberative session at 10 a.m. So I think probably the one of the biggest issues usually is making sure we fully understand who's presenting what articles. And I can go through those one more time for everyone, make sure we're all on the same page. Is that a good way to?
Sure.
Right?
I think it'll start.
Okay. So actually, I wasn't sure how Article 1, election of officers.
Usually what happens, Article 1, is the moderator just reads that through and asks if people have any questions on it or anything. And at that point, if there are questions, the town clerk would probably answer them and address why these are 1 year, 2 year, 3 year terms, or whatever the case may be. So it's pretty straightforward.
All right. So that's what I have. The moderator is presenting it. I don't have confirmation yet, but I do have an email out to the planning board to make sure they have someone available that will be speaking to Article 2, Article 3, and Article 4. Those articles specifically address zoning amendment changes as recommended by the planning board. So as soon as I receive confirmation, I'll let you know.
I will say at the last meeting we had, there was discussion to get it for you. Okay.
And I believe the chairman said he was going to be.
That's my understanding.
I would assume we just,
Yes.
just checking.
And I think what you'll do, Troy, is let me know when you get a name associated with it, and I'll just announce them as presenting the article or whatever.
And looking at electronic document here, and cut and paste sometimes get you in trouble, but I have the 2020 operating budget presented by the planning board, but Carrie Douglas, the chairperson, will be presenting the operating budget, and typically the selectmen are there to help answer any questions, specific questions, but it's always presented by the budget committee. We have Article 6, the full-time highway employee. So Selectman Schaefer will take the lead. He'll present the article. Kevin Brown, our road agent, will provide backup support for any specific questions. The Public Safety Communications System lease purchase article, number 7. Our IT Director, John Brunel, will present the article. Chief Sergeant and Chief Freitzel will be available to provide backup support. As well as the Board of Selectmen, I'm sure there may be some discussion about the financing of this project. So I'll be prepared to assist with any of the financing questions. Article 8 is the Library Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund. And I don't have confirmation yet, but in the past, a library trustee or trustees will present, and I'll let you know as soon as I.
Usually it's been Vicky
Yeah.
who's done that.
They've
But
done
you
it.
can shoot me an email before Saturday and I'll just add that in.
Article 9 is Human Services and Health Agencies, and this will be presented by Chairman Weber, and I'll provide backup support. Article 10 proposes to create a General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund, and this will be presented by Selectman Schaefer, and I'll provide backup. Article 11 is requesting appropriations to paint the Old Town Hall, and this will be presented by Selectman Leary. He's kind of the expert.
He's a
on
subject
this
matter expert
topic.
when it
So,
comes to painting.
you know, I don't know if there's any real backup support here, but if there's some financial question, obviously we'll provide support. Article 12 is a proposal to purchase a plow truck. It's not a lease purchase, it's an outright purchase. And that will be presented by Selectman Schaefer. Again, Kevin Brown, the road agent, will provide support. Any financial questions, I'll be available to assist. Article 13, the Building Systems Expendable Trust Fund, will be presented by Selectman Lynch, and I'll provide support as well for any financial questions. Article 14 is the Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund. That'll be presented by Chairman Weber, and any technical questions about, you know, what are the upcoming needs will be answered by our IT Director, John Burnell. Then Article 15, we have a non-binding vote, and that's for asking basically for a consensus of the community if there's support to pursue a design for a community center. And I don't have confirmation yet, but I fully expect that we'll have someone from the Rec Commission presenting that article. They requested that this article be placed, so I'm sure they'll have a speaker. And then Article 16 is a petition. Article 16 is the elderly exemption petition, and a citizen, Jack Schreiner, he presented that. I don't have his contact information, but I'm sure he could be watching this evening. He'll probably walk in my office tomorrow morning. So Jack, please feel free to do so. But I'll make sure we reach out and communicate with him about what his intentions are in presenting that article.
Are you pretty sure he's going to be doing that one?
I don't know.
Is he the one who generated the petition?
Yes, he's a former selectman, I understand. So
Yes, he is.
He knows the process, but no contact's been made with him. Article 17 is another petition. This is for the veterans credit. And Chairman Weber, you've had conversation. You want to share your conversation because, you know, we have knowledge of possible changes.
Yeah, so I actually met with the veterans this week, and they're starting an organization in town, and due to the monetary impact to the town moving from $300 to $750, they're going to change their petition at deliberative to $500.
Okay.
And I know there was correspondence going back and forth, and I'm sure Bobby will respond this evening.
So they'll be making a petition to change, they'll be making an amendment to change
Correct.
this then.
To that petition to change it to $500.
Okay, but we still are going to need whoever individual is who?
He will be there, yes. Chief Bobby Jacks will be there presenting and making the amendment.
Now, I sent, based on your email, I sent him an email and asked him if he was going to speak.
Okay.
I haven't seen a response yet. I did that earlier, just before coming here, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm assuming he'll get back to me and
He's
we'll go from
He's
there.
very good at getting back.
yeah.
Now, that will, I'm assuming, generate, well, that's not my concern. It's going to generate a revote by the Budget Committee as well as the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, hold a meeting at the end.
Okay, so 2 petition warrant articles. Jack Shiner's on one and Mr. Jacques is on the other. And that should be good to go.
Laura Spector Morgan should be our legal counsel.
She will be there?
Yep.
Okay.
Unless there's an emergency in another community. But as of right now, she's scheduled to be our legal counsel.
Okay. Sounds good. Are there any
Welcome back.
questions from me? Welcome back. I didn't know I was back.
Had you gone away?
Yeah, I did gone away.
He did.
You were there last year. You were moderating last year.
I did it for the town because John Regan couldn't make it, and Mr. Reed was not available really. So, which brings up the question, just to make the board aware. Excuse me.
You need a backup.
There's going to be a need for a backup.
Yep.
There may be a need for a primary moderator. That remains to be seen. And I would say that we also would need to have some support, obviously, at the elections coming up for the New Hampshire primary.
Okay.
Those elections are going to require much more demand in terms of headcount and staffing, because we've got to not only provide registration for people to come in and register to vote, but we've also got to provide an opportunity for people to reassign themselves to a particular party or to disassociate themselves from a party. So there's an additional amount of headcount there. I was able to co-opt one individual who my wife's name will stay nameless to help out in the election, but we're right at the limit in terms of the number of people we need to staff the what I estimate to be 3 tables. I'm thinking this is going to be a large election, to be honest with you.
So how many more individuals do you think you need?
Probably 1 or 2.
One? Okay.
Okay. So if we could get 1 or 2 more people, that would help. One person would give us 3 tables plus the reassignment table. And that's 7 total. The other person could act as somebody who could bounce around to give relief to the people who are on the tables, that type of thing.
Okay.
Because right now we don't have enough people to be able to give lunch breaks, if you will, stuff like that, other than having somebody in the moderator like myself or somebody else to step in and do the the ballot clerk work and give somebody a break. So those are the things that we're looking at right now.
And that's the February 11th primary?
That's February 11th. And of course, I'm sure I will see all of your smiling faces there. As that is a official state election, and we'll go from there. But other than that, I think it's looking good. I don't see town election is going to be a problem. I don't see deliberative, based on what I'm seeing here, is going to be a problem, either the town or the school. Although I've got to communicate with the school to talk to them about their moderator. They've got a moderator term for 3 years, and I think I'm going to have to tell them that they need to correct that to 1 year based upon the fact that any newly elected moderator will serve out the residual of the term. So I'm not sure whether the 2 moderator offices are offset by a year. If it is, then it would make sense what they're doing. But if it's not, then we're going to have to fix.
It can be amended, because 1 year I had supervisors of the checklist as a 3-year term. and it was caught at deliberative. It was amended to,
Yeah, it can, and
6-year term.
it can be amended. That's the only way they can do it now because the school board's already signed their warrant. So they don't have any opportunity right now to amend that. Other than that, everything's great. Any questions for me? Brent, this is your chance. Stump the chump.
will you be having rules that you're going to want to read off on a slide? Because I can share our PowerPoint.
It's too big for a slide. Okay.
Yeah.
So the bottom line on it is there's usually a speech that's given beforehand discussing all the rules and regulations and all that type of stuff. John has been kind enough to give me his working books and everything else. So I have those at my house and I'll be working off of that. It's the same book that I used during last year's deliberative for the town where I read off of that. So you won't see much of a change between what John was doing and what I would do for this deliberative.
Okay,
perfect.
One last thing, and Troy, you can send me that information if you want. If there's things you're going to be doing during the meeting, like are you going to have, last town deliberative, we had the color guard for the PD there. I don't know if you're intending to do that again. The other thing, if there's any awards or anything, which I don't need to know about now or whatever, just let me know so that I can create a space in the meeting to do that. Also, if you want to take a break, you've got a total of what? How many articles? 16?
16?
So I'll probably break around seven or 8, something like that. 17?
17.
Yep, 17. So I'll probably break around 8 and take 15 minutes for people to do their thing.
Okay. Yeah, and we will not be having a color guard. We will not have the staffing available for it. So next year, with if we want to have it as an annual event, then as long as we plan for it, they could schedule it.
Okay.
Welcome back, Mr. Barr.
Don't count your chickens. I know somebody who could do this if they're not going to run again.
Oh,
Thank you. I'll see you guys Saturday.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank
See
you.
you Saturday. Right. The next item of business is the New Hampshire DES PFOA update. Mr. Brown.
Okay. So I have, the Assistant Commissioner of New Hampshire DES, Clark Frizey, we all know Clark, had reached out via email to the surrounding communities that have been impacted by the St. Cobain PFOA contamination. So they were looking for some direction on outreach in our communities. And so I contacted Mr. Frizey and thought maybe before we make that kind of decision that we sit down with representatives of New Hampshire DES and talk about really what's been going on in the last 12 months in regards to the change in the standards, the possible expansion of additional testing in our town. And also this summer, I learned about the possible findings of increased PFOAs or PFAS down in Mayflower and Pilgrim area from possibly the Hudson landfill. So I thought maybe we could have a little briefing on that. So Mr. Frizey is here. He's also brought Jeffrey Martz, who's a lead project manager on this subject matter, to come in and give us a briefing and answer any questions you have. And I think based on our conversation today, we decide, if we want to have a community informational meeting or if we'd like to have New Hampshire DES just promote a few office hours here for people to be able to come in, ask questions, get information. So I think the ultimate end goal here is to get that feedback to you. So just sort of an update and then have that conversation about community outreach.
Okay, great. If you want to come sit down.
Mr.
Welcome
Chairman,
and thank you. Yes.
I was just going to say we're kind of privileged to have Assistant Commissioner as a resident. So we're
Yeah.
It does make the commute home a little easier. Jeff has a much longer commute, so.
We appreciate your taxes.
I was going to say, no mileage for you tonight.
No mileage. I get no mileage. So just, I guess for the record, my name is Clark Frizzy. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of DES. Appreciate Troy giving the invitation. We are sort of in an odd time period. Normally at the end of the construction year and before the next one, we like to give an update just to say, here's what got done this year and here's what's going to get started in the spring. We're in sort of an odd situation because in the meantime, we've set new state standards, which are health-based standards for drinking water and groundwater. However, 3M, along with the Plymouth Water District, sued us, took us to Superior Court, and the judge there has stayed our standards. So we're back to the old standards, but a number of places have tested to the new standards. St. Gobain reacted to the new standards. In fact, they were very proactive. They had their response ready to go. And the date they were put in place, they basically mailed out invitations to homes for additional testing and told someone bottled water is going to start getting delivered. Now that it's stayed, they've come back and said, okay, well, if we've made a written commitment, we'll follow through on that. But your state standards now are 70 parts per trillion. We're not going to go take on additional commitments beyond what the state standards are. And so we do have a number of homes, I think more in Londonderry than here, where they've been notified that, hey, you're in line to get further investigation, possibly bottled water. But now St. Gobain is sort of stalled. With the initial investigation that got started, there are areas that are above the enacted but stayed lower, more protective health standards. And those areas are sort of in limbo. And we went through this with the first go round where we were setting standards and nobody knew exactly what to do. In the meantime, the legislature is in session. There is a bill that passed bipartisan 5-0 to take the health-based standards that we developed and basically put them into statute. The reason that the court stayed our standards is the judge felt we did not do a sufficient job of a cost-benefit analysis, even though in my version of the law, and we helped write it, there was no cost-benefit analysis required. It just asks us to consider costs and benefits. I'm not the judge, he is. And so basically what they're doing is saying, go ahead and complete the work, skip the cost-benefit analysis. There are also a number of bills that are looking at potentially building up a pot of money to help out with the implementation of those standards, possibly including private homeowners. Our standards do not have anything to do with private homes. We do not in this state have the ability to demand that everybody test their well. And if they do test their well, unless it gets to the point of being a health hazard, which we would judge in conjunction with the health officer of the town, we really have no say. However, the feeling is in certain parties that if we are going to have these new lower health-based standards, there ought to be some sort of pot of money, both for municipal systems and for private homeowners. All of that's up in the air, and some people are coming in. I don't care. The health-based standards were published. Therefore, I've tested and you ought to do something. They're no longer our standards while we're stayed. And we also still have the issue. Some people seem to be totally oblivious that these contaminants are out in the water. And when they get a letter, they're shocked and have just been totally surprised. And then you add in that Southern Litchfield does seem to have impacts potentially linked to the Hudson landfill. So where we're at right now is, as I said, we have put in health-based standards, which we're very confident in the science on. Personally, I think we did all that we were requested to do by the legislature. That has been stayed. We have applied to be authorized to go to the Supreme Court to have it adjudicated by the Supreme Court instead of the Superior Court. Superior Court has to release us to do that. He has not done that yet. So all that's going to get fished out. We do have a number of home owners who have been notified, hey, you may be, above the enacted but now stayed health-based standards, but they're below the current state standards, which are the old state standards. And as Troy and I have talked about many times, the second somebody feels like things aren't right, they come to town hall and they grab the first person they can find. And if they can't find them, they find the nearest selectman. And so we wanted to make the offer to come and give a briefing, but we're not really sure that that would be beneficial to the usual nighttime meeting because so much is uncertain at this time. Troy suggested we come in. Jeff was kind enough to come down, even though he has a very long commute home from this. He is the program manager for this area and is fully versed in all of the investigations that are going on. So if it's investigation specific, Jeff can help out. If it's more policy related, I can hopefully answer your questions.
Okay. Where is St. Cobain actually cleaning themselves up? Because they still haven't done their scrubber project and all that yet, right? So they're still contaminating?
We're in the midst of doing their air permit. We did put out a draft permit. We put out the public comment. We extended the public comment basically through the end of December. We have received a lot of public comments similar to what we got with the MCLs. Kathy Beam, who's the head of that, is going through those. Right now, the target date is that she will have that done and a director's decision, because air permits are not put out by the commissioner. They're actually put up by the air director, but have an air director's decision by the end of February. Obviously, when that goes out, I'd like to set up one meeting to do a briefing on that amongst all the towns, because it's the same air permit and the air doesn't know boundaries. And I don't want to do 5 separate meetings. But where we're at right now is I really can't comment on the permit itself because we are responding to public comment. As I said, it was pretty voluminous. Some of it was, I gotta say, we got some people out there who are pretty sharp. We usually just get I'm unhappy, and we get lots of those. We had some that were extremely technical. So Kathy's got her work cut out to go through them. But in the meantime, they are continuing to have PFAS come out. PFOA, we measured their stacks and very, very little is coming out. If you take and ran all of their systems nonstop 365 days, you generate about a pound of PFOA in that whole time period, which is spread in the air. So the PFOA is way down. There are other PFAS compounds, some of which don't even have CAS numbers. They don't have names that are coming out in higher volumes than that, although less than what used to be used in industry. And those cause us concern because a lot of what we're finding is longer chain compounds tend to break down into PFOA or PFOS once they get on the environment and the sun hits them or temperature hits them or something. And so we don't know if some of these may be found out to be precursors, and maybe once they get out in the environment and settle in, maybe they become and generate PFOA. But certainly PFAS, the compound family, is still coming out of the stacks and is still being deposited on the soils and is making it down to groundwater. So it's a long-winded answer, but I think it's what you're actually asking.
So once it gets implemented, the air quality, then they could have a 1-2 year construction.
It's 1 year they have to be in operation and show that they are operating in line with the permit. So and this is just an open comment that was made at the public meetings, and so I can discuss it a little bit. Right now, we asked for 95% effectiveness. Part of the reason for that is they're at such a low level, they're almost at the ability to detect on some of these compounds. And so to be able to show efficacy is really actually technically hard. I don't know where Kathy's going to come down in the final and whether, Craig Wright's the director, where Craig's going to make his final decision. But I will say one of the comments that was brought forward by St. Cobain and their technical team is it's really hard to show you're in full compliance when you almost can't measure the stuff to begin with. The nice part is what they have proposed is absolutely the best available control technology out there. We got to set the operating parameters to make sure it's operating as the best available control technology. But what they proposed is what we were looking for. There is a concern that it could generate another compound called HF They did commit in a meeting I had across the river with the Merrimack Citizens Advisory Commission that they have an HF scrubber design ready to go. And if we do show that they are generating this other compound called HF, they will get that scrubber built and on. In the meantime, if it has an exceedance, we'd be able to regulate their operations to keep them below the HF limit while the scrubber got put on.
Question, Mr. Chair? Are other cities and towns going through the same thing? Or have we experimented the facts that came here first in New Hampshire? I know we've heard reports of upstate New York and some places like that.
Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont,
Yeah.
okay.
St. Cobain,
It's
what
all
used to
over.
be Chemours, is still in operation in Hoosick Falls, New York. They have put a scrubber technology on their plant. We had them pilot it here. We didn't like the results.
So
So the RTO, which is what they're going to, we think is better technology than what they put on at Hoosick Falls. New York is happy with the operation of the scrubber in New York. And
they're following the federal regulations, okay? The first ones, correct?
there are no federal
I mean,
regulations
the
for air
70
emissions.
parts, the 70 parts there. They're not down to those New Hampshire parts.
I don't believe New York has enforceable limits
Yeah, just
at
asking.
all. They are proposing drinking water standards, and they're slightly more stringent than ours.
Okay.
I think where we're 12, they're proposing 10.
Yeah. It's here or there. It's just a number.
Yeah.
It changes from day to day. Win numbers.
Our numbers aren't changing.
You know, the test numbers goes not.
It's a long process to come up with
I
those
understand.
numbers.
Just wondering how you got to learn from someone.
But there are other places. For instance, there is another company locally called TCI. They operate right at the border of Manchester and Londonderry.
Mhm.
They are doing a similar process. They have some control technologies in their stacks. So far, they refuse to do air testing. We're in court proceedings to force them to do air testing. So for people who are in northern Londonderry and Manchester, they have issues. As far as stack emissions, there is also a facility down in Rhode Island that they initially thought had stack emissions. They've since come back thinking maybe it's not stack emissions. I don't think that's been finally decided one way or the other.
But here, in the we're talking about, it's all about stack, correct? And
What we have in
stack.
Litchfield is absolutely all stack.
It's all stack. Yeah.
In Merrimack, I think there's plenty of ground water issues, some of which were not caused by air emissions.
We found that around local firehouses. I'll say that nice way.
And then Amherst, TCI, which is the other company, they're claiming now that none of it is air emissions. We don't agree. I think in Amherst, it's probably a mix of air emissions, and they did have some ground discharges too.
Okay, just a general question to see how the rest of the world's working around it. Thank you.
There was, I thought there was going to be one last segment of water line extension constructed, and
There is.
that was supposed to happen this summer, but it got put on hold, or what?
I think it's-
What's
Yeah,
the status of
That has to do with, I guess, a change in federal tax law, and it affected the taxes that were levied as St. Cobain was going to construct and essentially, provide pipe to Pennachuck Water Utility. So the taxes were going to, as I understand it, get passed on to ratepayers, and that affected their tariff
Oh.
and had to go before the Public Utilities Commission. So it was unrelated to anything St. Cobain was doing. It was kind of just a legal technicality that put that on a delayed status. But right now they're expecting that that'll get resolved, and they'll be putting that out to bid and have that completed in the spring, early summer.
Do we know where that section of pipe is?
That's from Hillcrest Road south to the, I'm going to say the library. If I
They'll connect
recall.
right up at the library
Right.
where it comes around my house and goes
Yeah,
up to the stagecoach.
I'm surprised it don't. I thought the whole hold off was because they paved the road first.
So,
Normally they don't dig up
No,
the road until it's paved.
in the tax cut bill that went through 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They had to find some bill payers, and one of them there used to be an exemption for what's called capital and native construction. and they pulled that exemption back. And what it basically would have had is Pennachuck would have had to pay a 30% tax on whatever they accepted from Pennachuck. And their only way to recover that is to put it on the ratepayers, which we all know we pay at Pennachuck East rates. I'm a bill payer myself. And so there are two things. One, we are working with Senator Shaheen and others to try and get the kayak removed and back to exemption. And then the other is they did work out through contracting in the PUC where now Pennachuck can accept a plus up to cover the tax bill and not have to put to ratepayers. But that did take a little longer than would have expected. And by the time they got done, I think it was directional drillers. They claimed they couldn't get a directional driller. And part of the length there, they want to use directional drilling, which every time in the earlier section, not opening up an intersection and letting traffic flow. I love directional drilling.
The soil is good for that.
It works well. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I think they did work underneath Hillcrest at the intersection of Hillcrest and 3A.
They did.
Yeah, that was done with directional drilling. That was done directional
Yeah, it
drilling.
worked in my
It
house.
seemed like they stopped. And
Yep.
so that piece of infrastructure is in
One of the
place.
nights
Traffic was a little slow, and Brent and I had a
Oh,
small
up
conversation
3A.
about it.
I think they did some houses
Oh,
with directional
my
drilling
God.
too.
All the way up Route
Oh,
3A.
There were a few houses.
There's one up in Manchester. If you ever really want to see that Saint Cobain is in the end trying to really be cooperative. I'll walk you around a lady's property and what they did to not interfere with her parking lot of a driveway.
Uh-huh.
It was-
When the line went from Temple Drive back to Wysora Drive, the airport access road, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah,
That was the morning. They would start, instead of starting after the rush hour. Oh my God. People were they were yelling out the windows. It was awful.
It's a little hectic there the first thing in the morning going north to south.
a little.
Okay. Couldn't put them in a barge.
That's all right. That's all behind us.
Well, it's coming back.
Only for a little bit.
We slowed down for a
And
minute. And
it's fortunately this side of Albuquerque, so
Oh.
it should be better.
Oh,
People can
that's
dump off.
oh no, really? Yeah, because
We can deflect traffic.
you take the traffic count there, and
Different.
oh yeah,
It's we're still going to be this dealing should with be much traffic. better, much better.
yeah. Above Albuquerque. Oh my God.
There's some key intersections there. So
I
this stretch will be it's going to have an impact on traffic, but it's not going to be
Right.
like we experienced in the north end.
In the morning, residents north of Albuquerque trying to get out of
They
their
gotta go to work.
driveway between 7 and 7:45, you just sit there and wait. You counted 30, 40 cars go by, and finally you sneak out, and it's amazing. Just amazing what this.
That's good planning. We didn't widen the road enough.
Oh, oh,
So it sounds like, Clark, at this point in time, I'm not getting a lot of feedback from residents. I'm not sure really how much of an impact it is right now on residents, but are you suggesting that that if we held just an office hours for Q&A, or you think we're holding off until we get more? Our preference would be to hold off until we get some clarity as to what the legislature is going to be, because right now there's a lot of different bills out there, and it could be everything from just setting up a loan program for municipalities, which really wouldn't do anything here, all the way to a very comprehensive approach. At least one of the draft bills included private homes. Some sort of a rebate program was what we were discussing. So far, the governor's office has had the treasurer involved, and they're willing to bond up. Last discussion was about $50 million, which would have a significant impact. I'd sort of like to be able to give decent answers as to what is the state standard going forward, and what, if any, financial assistance is available. At any point, Jeff was kind enough to volunteer this too. At any point, if you do start getting groundswell, we can come in and do office hours. We've done them here before. Basically just take a half a day and we'll sit in here, and anybody who has a question, we'll field it and try and answer it personally. The other, as always, you got my number and you got Jeff's number. And if somebody is really up in arms, it's easy enough for me to stop on the way home. It's the nice thing about it being here
it is easy for me to swing in here, meet with somebody.
Someone individual, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has there been any investigation on what's causing over in Pilgrim and Mayflower?
So in December, DES sent a letter to the town of Hudson requesting additional investigation work to determine if PFAS contamination from the landfill is moving beyond the groundwater management zone. So the groundwater management zone delineates the property where known contamination is contained. So there's a well at the border of that boundary that had PFAS that exceeded 70 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS combined. So that letter requested a work plan to investigate that further and gave them 60 days to reply with the work plan. So we're coming up on 60 days in the next week or two. So we'll be looking for that work plan to see additional investigation.
So that plan would typically you would expect what kind of response back? Additional monitoring wells? Is
Either
that what-
additional monitoring wells or evaluation of wells that they may not use for their typical monitoring program. They have some extra wells out there that they could take a look at, collect additional hydrogeologic data from some of the surrounding wells. I was also in the process of drafting a letter to St. Cobain when the judge issued the enjoyment of the standards. So currently that letter is on hold pending further update on what the standards are going to continue to be.
It's a mess over there, Pilgrim and Mayflower. I mean, there's 6 cancer patients in 5 houses, just to give you an idea. There's definitely something going on there. All of us are on wells. I live in that neighborhood. My concern is you've got a construction company next door shaking the ground every day. You've got this, concealed or sealed up area, hopefully, that is potentially, leaching into the ground. What's our end game with that?
Ultimately, the goal will be to find a responsible party or parties potentially, and to provide some sort of alternative water, either in the form of extension of a water line or in-home treatment systems have been effective using granular activated carbon. You put in a whole house treatment system in the basement where the line comes in from the well, and that's been shown to be effective in other parts of the study area for St. Cobain.
The tag on Kurt's thing, if you go a sealed landfill with vibrating ground, is there anything to see what's going on?
That might unseal it, right?
My understanding on the landfill is that part of the refuse was placed on bedrock. So, potentially there's a pathway into the underlying bedrock, which
Okay,
where the wells are drawing the water on Pilgrim Ave, or Mayflower Ave,
Explains.
So the ground shaking could potentially just keep opening the crevices in the rock and, things like that too.
And then it's just like
You're talking to 2 of us, I guess, at the same time.
no.
Let him answer my question.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, that would be the point of the site investigation statement of work, which we're waiting for Hudson to get.
Okay.
We do provide reasonable amount of time, especially to municipalities, to pull together a work plan and propose what they want to do. We don't make people turn it around overnight. That could be frustrating to the homeowner who's waiting for what's the path forward, but we really need to see what they're going to propose and see if it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So far, have you gotten any communication from them? Are they going to lean into this, or they?
We haven't heard. Typically we would give them this time period that we ask, and look for the submittal 60 days. So.
And this is the town of Hudson that you're trying to
Town of Hudson
deal with. Okay. All right.
So there are ways to investigate fractured rock and collect hydrogeologic data to try and infer what is going on in terms of groundwater flow and whatnot. So there are things that can be done to investigate it. So.
And again, I just want to say, for the record, I'm not blaming the construction company, but it's a condition of the area, and unfortunately, they might not be helping the situation. But again, it's not their fault. They're doing their thing.
They haven't done anything wrong.
No.
So basically, you guys are on it.
Correct.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
I'm all set. Thank you. Thank you very much for.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Have a safe ride
Pleasure
home.
meeting with you.
Thank you for coming down, Jeff.
Thanks.
The next item is the continuation of the certified officer hiring bonus. Mr. Brown.
I didn't even know about this one.
Okay, so the board, about a year ago, I think now, the board was approached by Chief O'Brien, the former police chief. And as you know, we were going through a period of time where we were trying to recruit new officers and we're not having any luck. They wanted to try to be a little bit more aggressive and see if we could attract some officers that were already certified and already working in the as a professional police officer. And the board had agreed to allow the department to interview and make an offer of $5,000 signing bonus. A signing bonus meaning that if the officer joined employment with the town after completing 6-month probationary period, they'd be eligible for the $5,000. We were able to do that for the last 2 hires. And the savings to the town is huge. I mean, usually,
Well, you're saving the overtime costs,
when
right?
you're saving when you hire an officer who's not certified, I think the class itself is a 12-week course.
Right.
And then of course there's timing. There's not every week is there an opening. So the opening for the class is maybe offered twice a year.
Yeah.
So you'll have an officer come on board. They're not able to operate, but they have to go through an in-house training program and they're not able to patrol by themselves until they're certified. So we have the ongoing cost of field training and then sending to the academy. We have that cost. And at the same time, when all this is going on, you're paying out overtime to cover that vacant position.
Right.
Very expensive process. So being, Chief Sergeant being new, he wanted me to ask the board just to reinforce that this hiring bonus is still in effect.
No, this comes out of their budget, right?
It comes out of their budget and obviously the savings of overtime.
And this helped us get the last 2 seasoned officers too.
That's right.
Right.
The field training. So the last couple of officers we hired, I think we had a field training period of time of 2 weeks to 4 weeks.
Right.
And then they hit the ground running
And
and
they're-
they're contributing day
It
one.
really is. They're already trained professional officers. It's more just learning our procedures in the town of Litchfield.
No, I think it's a very appropriate movement. Mr. Chairman, I would move to continue offering the $5,000 hiring bonus after completion of 6-month probationary period for all full-time certified officers.
We have a motion by Mr. Lemire,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Schaefer. Any additional discussion?
I like that. I understand the purpose, but if you're qualified to be here in the first place, you don't have to go to school. You're not paying for that, doing that, and you come here, and you accept the job. Why are we giving them a $5,000 bonus?
It's
If they want to come here.
it's a recruitment tool that they're using. I think that they're using it as a way to actually do a direct contact and make contact with officers. And this is just another incentive for them to consider coming and joining our department. This is starting to become I'll say a common practice, but there are 2 communities in southern New Hampshire that are doing this. The town of Hollis recently advertised and they're offering a $7,500 signing bonus. And I think I heard today that Bedford was offering, was it
I think it was 10. It was
$10,000
10,000.
signing bonus? The savings is just incredible. And obviously when you're trying to do a direct recruit, to be able to have an incentive, it's helpful because these officers are currently employed. They have seniority. For them to give up their current employment, come to the town of Litchfield, serve a probationary period, and lose that seniority, there needs to be something, an incentive there for them.
Any other comments?
So it's as long as it was only going to full timers. That's all.
It's
yeah,
in the
no,
motion,
yeah,
full-time
yeah,
certified officers. They have to be certified is the other caveat. that's in
Full-time,
there.
yeah.
So it can't just be
Full-time is correct.
Yes,
Full-time
yeah,
and
yeah, it says
certified.
it on the end there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion carries 4-0-0.
Just to add to this, I think there's the employment history going on right now is creating this. If there are more if the people actually looking for work, you wouldn't be getting the bonuses as much. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. It's just
Okay,
because
it's
it's such.
because you can't get
The
anybody.
economy is good right
It's all
now.
about the economics.
Oh, well, Chairman Weber and I were meeting with Captain Scotty today and discussing another matter, but this issue came up and he was giving us a quick synopsis of what was going on in this business. And these towns and cities are advertising
Not getting anybody.
and they're not getting responses that they used to. And when they sit down and go through the preliminary testing process, it's not uncommon that if you had 50 applicants, you may only have one or two that make it through the first round of screening. Whereas in the past, you might have a half dozen or more, a dozen or more. So.
There used to be thousands of people applying,
Yeah.
and now there's a handful.
Well,
Okay, the next item business is deliberative slides. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think really the best way to handle this is you heard the assignments this evening. I'm working on the slides, so
I was going to
work
say
in
these are
progress.
last year. I'm going,
Take
wait a
last
minute.
year's slides.
I
bring
said
them
that-
forward.
I don't want to say anything, but
And so over the next couple of days,
It's
I'll
under
be
zoning.
updating them.
okay.
With Cindy
So,
Gooch is the-
but I share it with, you're all shared with these. So continue to look on, see the progress on the slides. Make sure you review your slides and feel free to come into my office. We'll go through them, discuss them. Call me, email me, whatever.
Slide 7.
I'm
I
just
usually
checking.
try to lay them out so that they're,
Jesus Christ.
they provide the information that's needed, simply laid out, simple facts, not making them too complicated. So
When do you think you'll have them completed by?
tomorrow I'll make a big push. So by Wednesday, by the end of the day, Wednesday, they should be complete unless I'm just missing a little bit of data that I'm trying to get from someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys all good with that?
Yep.
Okay, seeing it is 7:23, we'll open it to public input. And since there's nobody here from the public, we'll close public input. Next would be the administrator report. Mr. Brown.
Just working, this week we'll be working on preparing everything I can for deliberative session. There's a lot of coordination that goes on behind the scenes. But that's what I'll be doing this week. There's a couple meetings this week I'll be attending. Town moderator and supervisors of the checklist. Town clerk will be having a meeting Wednesday night, specifically to start preparing and planning for the upcoming primary presidential election. So I've been asked to attend that. And if selectmen wish to attend, you can. Just let me know, because if we have more than 2 members there, I'll have to post for, a meeting.
Separate this.
I will not be able to attend.
Okay.
I won't either.
I may step in
Yeah. So we have,
because
it'd be good to have at least one select person there just to have that connection. And then I'm sure it's going to come up under other, but we will have, and I'll be attending an organizational meeting for a capital improvements committee meeting this Thursday night at 7. So we were able to get that scheduled. We have everyone confirmed except for the one resident that when we interviewed them said that they would be traveling on business this week. So, but otherwise we have all full attendance.
Well, the other resident and full
Yeah.
committee people.
So hopefully that meeting will, it'll be organizational, election of a chair, vice chair, and setting our meeting dates and discussing our timetable and how we want to, roll this out, get the word out to committees and departments, get the data back in. hopefully this process can be accomplished before the July 1st. I don't see why you can't
Within 6 months.
pull
we
this
should have it
data
done.
together in 6 months.
And we have NRPC helping us.
Right.
Okay, Selectmen report. Mr. Lynch.
Went to the planning board meeting the other night, short and sweet. Got out about 8. Last one lasted till 11:30. Okay. And everything went smooth. They talked about the zoning and stuff like that. One little minor plan thing going on the coming back to the board. But that's because of the drainage, because of the PFOAs, supposedly on the, I'm going to say, right here on
Oh, the
Hillcrest Road.
Hillcrest subdivision.
Correct. They got to change the drainage methods. The idea of just digging a hole in the ground and putting detention ponds is a thing of the past with the methods that they're concerned about in this whole area. So they're going to be doing more sheet drainage in the design. But that's going to come back to the board and go through a whole new design factor. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer.
There wasn't a Recreation Commission meeting last week since we last met, but there's one tomorrow night.
Nothing to report from conservation for myself. Next meeting is next week, I believe. Mr. Lemire?
I was unable to attend the Heritage Committee meeting, but I did keep track. They're working with Mr. Theroux on 16 Colby Road, the property there. He did consent to allow the committee to take pictures of the inside before it's demolished. And one of the members of the Heritage Commission suggested the possibility of asking the owner if it could be, the house itself could be moved to the Moores Falls property, and is asking for feedback on that. So I don't know the results on the feedback, but other than that, Mr. Thoreau has been very helpful to the Heritage Commission. I will let you know accordingly how that works
The one
out.
across the street.
Thank you. Since we had no items removed from consent, we had no other business. We have the deliberative session Saturday, February 1st at 10 a.m. Please show up and participate. Our next meeting will be February 10th, 2020. We do have one other item this evening. It is a non-public session under RSA 91A3 2B, the hiring of any public employee. Motion to go into non-public?
So moved, Mr. Chairman, under 91A 32B.
Motion by Mr. Lemire, roll call. Mr. Lynch?
Hi.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yep.
I am yes.
Yes.
We are now in non-public. Thank you for tuning in and have a good evening.